The moment I've been waiting for about, let's see, 21st. I did this bowl back on January the 21st, and it was part of my Bowls from Log series, and it was a natural edge bowl that we cut really thin, about a 1/4 inch thick, wall thickness all the way up and down, and we allowed it to dry that way. Now my intention was to get an elongated bowl that has warped on its own, and all I was going to do was come back, sand it down, take the tenon off the bottom, or reflatten the bottom, take the tenon off, and finish it. So we're gonna do that today. We're gonna get started doing that. But I wanted to explain what has happened to this bowl. If I can find my ruler. Here it is. Okay. If you watched the original video, you saw that this bowl was a 9-inch diameter bowl. When we finished it, it was 9 inches. Okay. Well, now, along the grain of the bowl, along this way, it is about 8 5/8. So we lost about 3/8 of an inch this way, long ways. However, across the grain this way, it's at 5 1/4. So we've lost 1 3/4 inches across the grain this way. So it gave us an elongated bowl, or an oval shaped bowl. It's also warped in a couple of other directions. I don't have any measurements on that, but I'll find out once it's on the lathe, other ways that it may have warped. But as far as final turning this thing, all that's done. There's nothing else I can do as far as turning this bowl except truing up the bottom and taking off the tenon. That's it. There won't be any final cuts or anything like that. I tried to make sure before I took it off the lathe that my final cuts were made, and if I remember right, I even sanded to like 220. Well, over the time that this thing's been drying, which has been about 3 weeks, but I've had it in the house in front of a wood heater with a blower blowing on it, so it is bone dry right now, and no cracks anywhere. This is just one way that you can do a natural edge bowl. If you wanted this thing to be true, a truly circular bowl, then all you would have to do is turn it thicker and wait a little bit longer for it to dry. And once it's dry, you put it back on the lathe, you make all your final cuts, and you true everything back up, and you've got a trued up natural edge bowl. But I didn't want to do that with this one. That's another method you can use, and I use it all the time too. But I just wanted this one to be, let it kind of do its own thing and be, more of a unique type piece. But anyway, I had written the type of wood, oak, and the date that I had roughed this thing out. It was January 21st, which today's the 14th. It's of February, so it's been about 3 weeks, give or take a little bit. But anyway, we're going to get started on this thing, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to finish it and everything like that, and get this thing started. Okay, for starters, I'm going to use my drill and kind of power sand this thing, because like I was saying, there are tool marks in here, and it's pretty rough. Now that it's all dried, you'll see more tool marks and things once it's dry. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to get in here with, I believe it's 80 grit. Yes, it's 80 grit sandpaper. And I'm just going to try to smooth all that out. Like I said, can't go back and make final cuts now. You can see some ridges and things like that up here. But I'm gonna start with the inside, and then I'm going to move to the outside. My tenon is not true, so I'm not very comfortable with with a security, well, you can see it moving, but it'll hold it good enough for me to sand, you know. So anyway, here we go. We're just going to do some sanding, see what we can get. I'm just trying to rough sand it a little bit. One thing you can do is you can use your indexing feature or your indexing feature on your chuck or something like that to hold this thing in place so it can't move. But I kind of like being able to move it with my hand so I can rotate as I go. Now, I am actually sanding with the grain. The way this grain runs in here, and the way that my power sander is turning, it's going with the grain, which the grain runs circular with this thing. So we're in good shape here. I'm just going to keep on going, and I'll be back in just a minute once I get all of this sanded up good past the 80 grit mark, and I'm going to get started on the outside after that. Okay, well, I've got the inside sanded to 80 grit. Now remember also that your low grit sandpaper is going to be the hardest work. Take your time with your low grit sandpaper and make sure you get all those marks out and everything else, even the marks of your sandpaper, because that'll make it easier for your next grit, which I'm going to be doing by hand. I'm going to do the rest of the sanding by hand. But now I'm going to go ahead and work on the outside and go ahead and sand it, because I've got a good bit in here that I need to work on, or out here. And once I get that done, then we'll get started trying to finish sanding this thing up. Take your time and be careful of that edge right there. Right now I'm just rough sanding there. Okay, well, I'm just going to keep working all this all the way around until I get it the way I want it, and then I'll be back. Okay, I've done all my power sanding, but now you can see I've left sanding marks and things like that in it too. So I'm just going to go back. I've got a 60 grit sandpaper. I think I used 80 to begin with, but the 60 will come back and help me get those marks out so I can go on down through my grits. But you can see the grain running this way. That's the way that you want to sand. You want to sand it with that, and that will help. That'll help keep from getting your sanding scratches and stuff in there from your other sandpapers. So anyway, we're just going with the grain. This grain runs just like that. It makes a hook, and I'm going 60 grit first, making sure I'm sanding with the grain. And basically by the grain, I know the grain actually runs this way, you know, through the piece, but I mean with the lines. I guess you can see the little brown lines that run. They run straight through, but here they kind of hook and all that. But all I'm doing is I'm using this 60 grit to get in here and just basically knock off the sanding marks from the power sander, because they can be kind of tough to get out. But I'm just going to keep on doing this until I get the inside and the outside done, and then I'll be back as I continue on. Okay, we're now at 100 grit now. I've got most of my sanding marks out. I'm now at 100 grit. $150, $220. Okay, well, I've got her all sanded to 400 grit sandpaper, and now I'm just going to try to apply the finish. And what I'm going to use is this friction polish. You've seen me use it in several of my videos, but I'm going to try to use it. However, the bowl's not true, and I can't use the lathe to do it, so I'm going to try to do it just by hand. You know, to see if I can do it or not, and we'll see how that turns out. I'm going to start out and get a coating very liberally on this piece. Very liberal coating in all this bark area. I forgot what they call that area, but I just want to get it wiped on here, and then I'll come back and sort of buff it with my hands. Just get it all over it. And I'll come back and I'll buff it, and we'll see, you know, if it takes several coats or not. I'm getting the waxes and the oils and all of that, making sure that stuff all gets in here very good. I really want that shellac and the oils and all to penetrate down as far as they can go. Anyway, now we're just gonna try to buff this ourselves, move that stuff around, and hey, it actually works a little bit. Almost like the sanding process. But I'm just going in circles, and it is bringing out a little luster. Okay, well, would you look at that? That finish is looking great. But I had to switch to a buffing pad on a power drill. Basically, I built this buffing pad because mine's wore out, and I threw it away, you know, here a while back. But what I've done is I've taken the sander from my power sander and took sandpaper off, and I just wrapped a terry cloth towel around it with a paper towel pad up under it. I hot glued it onto the back here, which it probably won't hold up very long because this drill is not variable speed with the trigger pushed, but it does a great job of friction burning this stuff in. Well, maybe not burning, but whatever the friction makes this polish do, it did it. This looks great inside here. It's got a nice sheen, almost a gloss, something that I just couldn't do by hand. It just wasn't going to work. So I'm going to put another coat in here, and I like putting the finish on until it doesn't absorb anymore, and that way I know that the wood's been completely sealed. But I'm just applying it in here, rubbing it in with my hand, and then I'll come back and I'll buff it down with my power drill. Alright, so let's see what we got now. Get this thing going. got this thing spinning this way so it doesn't try to grab the bark. Okay. I believe that looks good. Very good to me. My light's getting dim for some reason. That really looks nice. Okay, I'm going to stick with that. Now I'm just going to start working on the outside, and I'm going to do it the exact same way. I'm just going to apply it with my hand. Just apply it by hand. It takes a lot to initially get started. Oh man, well, that oil just brings out that color. I'll bring you around here so you can see. I mean, this stuff really brings out the color in this wood. You know, oak can be very plain anyway, but of course oak can be very beautiful too, you know, with the right figure, if you can find the right figure with it. Very beautiful wood. So I'm just putting this on, and I'm going to go back and I'll buff it with the drill. I really like that because, buddy, it throws it to it. And the first coat, like I said, has to be pretty liberal. I'm actually putting a lot of finish on this, and that wood is just soaking it up. But I'll put finish, especially this friction polish, I'll put on until it stops absorbing. Once it stops absorbing, I know the wood's full and everything else. I'm going to try to do this with you sitting there and buffing it, I mean. Then I'll probably just go back and hand buff it at the end once I get all this on there. That friction polish has a good feel to it too. But okay, well, I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put probably 2 or 3 more coats on here, and I'm going to buff it out with that thing because I like that. And I'll be back in a few minutes once I get ready to take this tenon off. Okay, well, now I've got the outside finished. I really like it. Got a nice little sheen on it. Nothing real glossy, but glossy doesn't really go with natural edge. And I'm not real big on glossy anyway. But anyway, all I've got left is to take this tenon off. Once I get the tenon off, then I'll sand the bottom and all that. But the way I'm going to do that is with this. It's my jam chuck, and I've got several different sizes. This one's about 5 inches across, and what I'm looking for is that it'll fit in this bowl very nicely. Okay, the bowl's warped and all, and it won't touch exactly right all over the place, but it'll fit tight enough for me to use light cuts and take the tenon off the bottom. Okay. All I did here was I took a piece of dimensional lumber. This happens to be cherry, and I faced it off. I put a tenon on the back so it'll mount in my jaws, and once it's in there, I trued the face, trued the sides, and rounded it over. Then I just mounted this cabinet liner on it. Well, the way this all works is this thing comes in. I've still got my little center mark right there. Goes in my tailstock, and it jams in there just like that. It just jams in. And now I can cut the tenon off. It'll be fairly as true as I can get it anyway. But I'll cut that tenon off, and we will finish this thing up. Okay, one thing to remember when you're just before you start this is make sure you test spin it, because what's happened is this thing's concaved this way here, so this can easily hit your tool rest if you're not paying attention. Got a little something on my tool rest right there. Also, as you come across and you make your push or your pull cuts, you want to be very careful not to go up the side at all. You want to make this flat right here. And the reason being is if you start coming up the sides, you're going to start getting tool lines in this thing it's a nightmare to try to get out. So come straight across, make sure you concave it. Once you get everything trued up, just concave it, or put whatever decoration you want to on the bottom or whatever, and you'll be good to go. And I'll probably put a couple of decorative lines in it once I get it going, but we'll see. See how bad out of balance it is, or it looks like it's out of balance, but that's just that where it warped up. And you're just holding this with friction. And you're just holding this with friction, so be very careful not to put too much into it. And you can tell where my cut stops here and starts here, so I'm not true yet. Right, let's see where we're at. Now actually, if you're not careful, you'll end up, this thing will get wobbly. Make sure your tailstock stays good and tight. But you don't want it too tight, because what you can do is you can start crushing these walls down. Now let's just check and make sure that everything's good. Okay, I've got that part out now. Okay, I'm good to go now. I'm going to start working on my tenon, and then I'll go ahead and sand this down to about 220 and put a couple decorative marks in. That's what happens when you get a catch. Alright, well, I'm going to have to go back and true up the face again. But it didn't damage the bowl. But that's what happens, you know. So now I've got damage out here. But what I'll do is I'll just face this back off. We'll see how she runs, first of all. Look at it. Ha! Like it never happened. Yep. As you're coming in here, you got to be very careful. What happened? The bottom edge of my gouge got into what's left of the tenon, and it flipped it, and it was enough of a catch to really just screw everything up. So you have to be very careful. Well, I've got the bottom kind of, you know, shaped the way I want it. Now I'm just going to begin my sanding. And all I'm going to do there is I'll start out with 100 grit. Get my glasses on. And I'll work this down to 220. Then I'll put a couple of decorative lines in. And then I'll finish it up to 400. And then I'll take the tenon off. All I'm going to do is just sand it. And then, like I say, I'll go down to 220, and then I'll put some marks in here. And I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, the way I normally like to take tenon off is I'll use my skew as a scraper, and I'll come in here as far as I can until my angles match, and then I'll clean it. I'll come in this way with my skew, and I'll just nibble out until I get down as far as I dare. Okay, now my angles are about to match, so I'm just going to start coming in from here. Just go up, let my bevel rub. I'll take a little nibble out there. Alright, that's as far as I dare go. So, I'll back this out. Now, my grain is running this way. So I should just be able to break that off, just like so. Hit that with some sandpaper. And that's what I'll do right here. I'll just hit it with some sandpaper. And erase that little nub mark and the tool marks that are left. Alright. Finished it down to 400. Just going to sign it. I like putting my name. What type wood it is, which is white oak. I thank one of my subscribers for telling me that. And I did check out his website, treebarkid.com or something like that, and I'll put the date, which is February 14th, 2/14. All right. All that's left, I'll put some finish on here and buff it out, and it'll be the friction polish. And one thing to watch out for that is ink can be thinned by alcohol, which is the same thing that thins this friction polish. So make sure that all of this is dry before you ever put your friction polish on there, or else it kind of blurs it. Okay, well, here we are. Natural edged, naturally warped, white oak bowl. From the Bowls to Logs series, people had been kind of asking me about when I was going to do the natural edge bowl and all, and they kind of wanted to see it. Well, there it is. If you look carefully at the bottom, you can see my true lines are circular, but then the bowl has elongated, so the outside foot is elliptical. I really like it. I think it turned out pretty. Had a couple little mishaps. You might get to see that, you might not. No, I'll put them in there. I'll put them in there. Anyway, that's my natural edge bowl from the Log series. And I'm going to go in there now and get this uploaded so you guys can critique it and tell me how bad my tool work is, because I wasn't on my game today. Anyway, the bowl turned out nice. And hopefully in another month or so I'll be able to do the other walnut bowl, the clean cut bowl. It'll be trued up and everything else, and hopefully it'll turn out nice too. I really like the friction polish. It gives a nice little sheen and everything else. So with that, I'll say have a good night, and I'll see you in about a week or so probably.